and giddy on with this thing. So welcome to Art 116. We're talking about fonts and typefaces today. I'm going to hit the screen share and go into my little dog and pony show about fonts and typefaces. So before I got really interested in Martin Luther King, my idea was, can I make this smaller? How much smaller can I make this?
You can make it so that it goes off to the side.
I just want to go way away. Okay. So, and yeah, everything's good. Hey, look at that. Ozbot followed me over here. I can't even believe it. Hello there. Let's see. Welcome. I just got to play the who dat thing. So, let's see. John's last Paula. Oh, Hunter. Is that you, Hunter?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the party. Thanks for coming today. All right. So, we're not designing a bookstore product anymore. I used to design a t-shirt and put a graphic design on a t-shirt. And now the Martin Luther King thing seems a little bit higher up on the scale of importance and stuff. So something about social justice, something like that. So yes, okay, we can do this slide for everybody. Fonts are used in many areas of print and digital media. So in publication design, page design and layout, the idea of web design, and also advertising, print and television as all places where we're using this stuff. You can actually use fonts in font and typeface design. That's a thing you can go into. As a designer, you can just design fonts and typefaces till your heart's content, because the fonts are all about the relative sizes and proportions and shapes of the letters, how they relate to each other, and how they function as an alphabet. And you can just design fonts if you want to. And this is something that can be done in multimedia. We're going to skip these things and go to a short history of typography. Okay, so I'm going to shove you guys way down here so I can't even see you anymore. It just won't let me shove you down that far. Okay, so typography is based on handwriting. It's based on calligraphy, fancy, beautiful handwriting, a formalized style of handwriting. And in scriptoria, in monasteries 1,000 years ago in the Middle Ages, we had monks living in monasteries. They were members of religious orders, and this was before the technology of printing, for the most part, and printing presses. And so to copy ancient manuscripts meant to copy them by hand and to actually hand make books by hand. So these scribes, these monks who were living at the monastery and working in a scriptorium, it was a room where the scribes would write and transcribe the ancient texts. And these were Roman, Greek, Egyptian. They were collected from all over the world. They were super rare and very valuable. And so they were hand copied. And this is what it looks like when you have parchment and you are writing with a quill pen and practicing calligraphy and designing something that's very beautiful. That is definitely a work of art. These books were so rare and so valuable that only the nobility and wealthy people had access to them. And very few people actually knew how to read. So it was a very, God, why do I blank out on some of these big words? Because big words are good for you. There was a lot of non-reading. There was not a lot of education. There was not a lot of formal education. There wasn't a lot of reading. What is that called? Illiteracy. Thank you. It was a hugely illiterate population. So even though we had text, much of it was transmitted to the population in church every Sunday. Through the spoken word. It was read by the priest or the bishop, and only they really knew how to read and also knew the Latin language, which most of this stuff was in the religious texts anyway. So you can kind of see in this the calligraphy and the idea of having a chisel-shaped quill pen that if you go one direction, you get a wide stroke, and if you go in the other direction, you get a very narrow stroke. And so as you go around a circle, you get a thickening of the stroke and then a thinning of the stroke. And it's a very dramatic kind of writing style. And that's kind of where all of our fonts and typefaces, originated from in the West, in the Western tradition. So here is that slide that takes us right back to the idea of the three major classifications of fonts that you will find. A serif font, has the little serifs that begin and end each stroke of the letter. And in one direction, the letter is broader, and in the other direction, the stroke is much thinner. And then we have these little wonderful serifs that begin and end every letter, and it's wonderful. And this happens to be Times New Roman is the font here. And so the big font here is in Times New Roman. And it's just one example of a serif font. There are a whole bunch of others. When you pull down from the font menu in Microsoft Word, there are about 200 fonts that are available to use. They're in alphabetical order, which is really no help to us, because it would really be nice if they were broken up into families so that you had all the serif fonts together, all the sans serif fonts together, and all the novelty fonts together. But that is not the case. So it's all mixed up, and you kind of have to just scan down to try to find a font that seems to fit the content of what you're trying to do. Serif fonts, if I can get my cursor to kind of come up here, serif fonts are very legible. When you have small type in a paragraph or on a page, multiple paragraphs, and you're trying to read small words in sentences really rapidly, serif fonts are easy to read. They're very legible. They reduce eye strain. All of those little grace notes, all of those little serifs help to visually blend the letters together into words and blend the words together into very easily read sentences and paragraphs, and it reduces eye strain in the viewer. So serif fonts have been a very valuable part of the Western tradition because it makes them really easy to read. Skipping now down to sans serif fonts. This one happens to be Universe. This is a Universe as a kind of a blocky, though elegant, sans serif font. And they were really originated in the latter part of the 19th century and then all of the 20th century. It was part of the modernist movement. In modernism, in the arts, and in the crafts, arts and crafts, and applied areas of art like design, we as a Western civilization wanted to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So everything that was traditional, we wanted to throw away and we wanted to improve on it. And so the idea of serif fonts began to be developed at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. It felt like modernism. It was clean, it was bold, it was kind of blocky, it was a different style of things, and it felt like they were throwing off the traditions of things that were kind of a stifling tradition that came before. At the beginning of the 20th century, we had huge progress in chemistry and physics, and in transportation, we had gasoline engines, which made automobiles possible, and we developed powered flight with airplanes and all that kind of stuff. Did you bring me something? No. Okay. Oh, okay, you're cool. So with all of those advances, with the advent of atomic theory and Einstein's theory of relativity and all of that kind of stuff, we felt like we were moving forward fast and rapidly into a new futuristic modern age. And that's why sans serif fonts became popular and everybody was developing them and using them. The only problem is that they're very hard to read. They actually create more eye strain, especially when you're trying to do small sentences and paragraphs and pages filled with a sans serif font. By the middle of the 20th century, we finally figured out that they were really cool to look at as a headline or a subheading in newspapers and magazines. And so they were mixed and matched into a lot of publication design. But when you get into the body text of most articles and books and things, you'll find that the body text is in a serif font of one kind or another, because that eases the eye strain and makes the body text legible. So that's a thing. Finally, novelty fonts. This novelty font up here in the third line is Edwardian script. I call it a novelty font. It's not something that you can use in every application. I can't write a newspaper headline saying World War III has just broken out in the novelty font like Edwardian script. In fact, they have very narrow applications. Have any of you ever seen something like this used before someplace? And could you tell us where you saw it or where it might have been used? Anybody? You guys aren't old enough. Oh, yes, please, Hunter.
I just have a sandwich.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So it was on the sandwich wrapper?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, very good. I was thinking you guys might not be old enough for this, because you kind of have to get into your 20s or 30s before you start getting invited to a lot of weddings and getting a lot of wedding invitations or wedding announcements. You'll find, if they still do this anymore, and most people don't because this is an expense that you don't want to go to, but people would have wedding invitations printed up in something like an Edwardian script, so that you had this flowery, florid kind of thing that was very celebratory. It's very Anglican. It's very, kind of English, Anglophilic kind of a thing to do, actually. So I never had my wedding invitations done in Edwardian script. I didn't have wedding invitations anyway. So those are like the three major classifications that I would create if I was writing a textbook on fonts. What does that mean? So fonts are carefully designed things. They're based on the elements of design and the principles of organization that we have studied in chapters 1 through 6 in the textbook. So you guys who have joined the class recently, you might want to go back and look at chapters 1 through 6 to kind of get a sense of the elements of art, which are line, shape, value, texture, and color. There's only 5 elements of art that you can make anything visual out of. But then the principles of design, there's like in chapter 3, there's 7 principles of design that our authors talk about. And when you take all of that stuff and start working with them as tools, as design tools that you can work with, you come up with something like this thing over here that Albrecht Dürer, a German artist from the Renaissance period, published this as a treatise on measurement in 1525. And so he was a printmaker as well as a painter, and he was really interested in designing fonts and looking at what fonts and what the printed word looked like, because he was a printmaker. And so here we are, him designing a alphabet and trying to illustrate and show for us the idea of what goes into designing an alphabet. And it's all about proportions. He's using a square as the basic measurement, the basic thing that he's considering to try to fit all of these letters into. And so he's taken the square and he's divided it into 4 quadrants. And then he threw the A in here to kind of show us how the A would fit into this thing. And he's got it so that the top of the A, way up here at the top, God, my thing won't stay lit, is just a little bit to the left of the center line. He's got the 2 legs of the A coming down at their angles, and I guess they really pretty much agree with the same angle of descent kind of coming down. And then the leg of the A morphs into the serif at the end, and he's even describing the serif in terms of its the radius of a circle that curve represents on the outside of the serif and on the inside of the serif. There's 2 different size circles there, 2 different radii measurements, two different size curves for just the transition from the leg of the A into the serif of the A. And so everything in the letter has that much thought and measurement and attention to proportion that goes into it, so that all of the letters really go together as an alphabet, as a particular font, and then they have a certain look, a certain kind of set of proportions that they work with. When we look at the B, we can look at the A and the B. The cross member on the A divides the A into the upper half and the lower half, and according to this square, it's in the center, but when I look at it over here, it looks like it's kind of high. When I look at the B in this drawing again, the two lobes of the B kind of come together in the center. But when I look at it over here, this lobe is smaller and this lobe is a little bit bigger and more pregnant, if nothing else, sticking out. And so it has a different feel to it. Both lobes are not the same size. And so there's more weight, there's more gravity in the bottom half of the letter than there is in the top letter. When we look at the C, it's based on the square, but and he shows us what happens when he puts a circle inside of the square, but then the C has the circle part cut off over here abruptly. And so that's what we're winding up with his interpretation of the C, and so forth. So there's a lot of design that goes into every letter in every font. And it's proportions. This is, we didn't really talk about proportions last quarter in the design class, but with fonts, it's all about proportions. It's all about how these different parts of these letters relate to each other in size and shape. So it's all about the proportions of the letters. Not that you have to worry about that too much. You just have to select a font that's appropriate for the message that you're trying to do. So each font communicates a style. So we have to understand that every font was designed somewhere back in history. Some of them are old, some of them are modern, and each one of them has like this content, this traditional or modern, some kind of societal content that it brings forward. So it brings a baked in embedded message along with it. So when you're using a font as a designer, you're being able to bring in that invisible content, that additional embedded content with the font, which helps to underscore and sell your message. Or if you choose the wrong font, it can tend to muddy up and mess up your message and make it a little less clear. So the art of designing with fonts is to try to choose a font that helps to sell your message as cleanly and clearly as possible. Each font identifies with a certain segment of history or modernity or class or whatever. A font is loaded with cultural meaning, and it's all baked into the font. So you can't get away from it. It's in there. So your job as a designer is to match the style of font to the style of your client or product or message that you're trying to convey. Oh boy, doesn't that sound like fun? That is cool. Okay, so we're gonna kind of skip through this stuff, and that's the end of that. Okay, I'm gonna stop the share on this one. And I've still got Jasmine and Zeb here, which is good, fantastic. Who can see your messages? Okay, so nobody's typed anything to me in the chat, which is just fine.
I sent you an email.
I know, I got it. Do you want me to open that up so that we can look at it together? Oh, she does. Okay, so let me, I gotta just minimize the screen share for just a second. I can't minimize Zoom when I'm recording. Oh, you're killing me. Oh, okay. Can't minimize this. Can't minimize this. Did I open it? I did not open it. I'm going to go to screen share and see what is open on the thing here. I don't have. What's this? No, that's not it. I thought maybe if my email was open, I could get into it, but that's not open. Okay. I've got a couple other ones I can talk about. I will definitely make sure that yours is open on my desktop and talk about it on Wednesday if I can't get in there right now. But I got to kind of do this for the people that are online and for folks who want to look at this later on. So I'm gonna share something that's kind of difficult. This is a very brutal one that I was playing with in 2019, and I want to apologize for it first, and give proper. But anyway, this was about the George Floyd incident in Minnesota. So I'm going to put it up on the screen, and I'm going to say that this is not really a good design. This is too brutal. This is too graphic. This is a quote from Martin Luther King. The arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. And then, of course, we've got the officer with his knee on the neck of George Floyd. And so this is it's too harsh. This does not work. It's not good. So I'm going to get out of this. We have to understand the incredible extreme power that we have as graphic designers. When we put an image and a piece of text together, it can touch people's hearts deeply. And so I just want you to know that we can be loose cannons as young designers who don't really know what we're doing yet. And so sometimes our designs can be deeply hurtful, or they can have a lot of power. So you can be very powerful as a designer. I want to go to my screen share and try to find one that was turned in today. Here's one that I did a couple years ago. Okay, so I was taking the image of Martin Luther King speaking, and then I was taking some stuff from the MAGA folks, the Make America Great Again folks, and I was playing with it. I was trying to do a mashup of things that don't really go together to see if I can make them go together. And one of the things that I was playing with in this upper one was just the idea that I took this Make America Great Again thing, and I got rid of the again thing and just talk about Make America Great, and try to juxtapose that with the dignified, inspirational, learned man that Martin Luther King was. Now, I took the phrase, and if I just had it in one text box, there would be much more line spacing between the lines. And I know that you can adjust the line spacing between the lines, but you can't really jam it and shove it together as tightly as I kind of like to do sometimes. So I'm going to show you guys that this is 3 different text boxes that that are separate from each other, that I can float around if I can just find out how to do this. And I can push them anywhere around I want to and float them around. When you have a person's face available to you and they are looking in a certain direction and they are speaking in a certain direction, then it's possible to even line up text with their eyes and their gaze, or with their mouth, so that it looks like this is coming out of them, or this is really super attached to them. It's about the visual linkages in a composition. Once again, we want to tighten up and use visual linkages in a composition whenever possible. I also wanted to let you guys know, or remind you once again, that I clicked on the image first and did a right click on it and went down to text wrap, and then I assigned tight as a formatting tool to the image. And then I also did that with all of the text boxes. So everything has the formatting of the text wrap of tight, so that we can jam these things together. Heck, we can even overlap them if we want to. I mean, you can put stuff right on top of other stuff and let go of it, and it won't snap back or anything like that. So that gives us lots and lots of power to space these things exactly where we might want to space them. So I was down here somewhere where Martin's eye level is and where his mouth level is. And I was just playing then with the spacing of what this stuff kind of looks like. So I've got ascenders in the word great. I've got the upper curve of the G, and I've got the T, that whatever goes above the line of the lowercase letters is called an ascender. And so I've got those. And I've got descenders. In the word making, I've got the loop of the G that descends below the line, and that's a descender. So sometimes I've got those things that can sort of go together, And like sometimes I will slide this down in like almost to between the C and the A in America and have the descender kind of come down here so that that's all like really close together. But when I look at the whole thing, it looks unbalanced. So I can't do that. I can't get away with that. This one pretty much works as a sort of a centered text where everything is kind of centered with everything else for the most part. But you can play with the spacing of these things to try to see how they might work together. And it's the proximity of things to each other, and it's how they align, whether they're justified left or whether they're centered text or whether it's justified right. You can play with how that text bubble of text kind of looks and what its composition is and how it relates to the rest of the composition in the thing. I wonder what's down here. Changing America one heart at a time. I thought I would play with that. I wanted to play with the word America, so I did it in a couple places. I've got a couple of different sizes of text here, just trying to get the words to be relatively the same length so that I don't have really long words and really short words that I'm trying to work with. And so with individual text boxes, you can change the text to be different sizes. And again, you still don't have to worry about the line spacing between the lines and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, that was another thing that where I was just playing with reverse text on a black background with a photograph. And I didn't do any editing or cropping of the actual photographic image. This is just the one that I found online and I thought I would play with a little bit. Okay. Gosh, I'm sorry that I can't get out of this to open up your project. Let me see if I've got one more here that I wanted to share with you guys, if I can find it. It's over here. Okay. All right. Oh, yes. Okay. So I had a student, originally, this is her original photograph. She's a photographer in the morning class. And so this is her original photograph. And she turned this in this morning and said, can you give me some feedback on it? And so the line up here was much smaller text and it said, don't judge a book by its cover. And down here was like, until you've walked a mile in her shoes or in their shoes or something like that. Where is the rest of this? Where is the rest of this? Where is the rest of this? Is it up here? Until you walked a mile in their shoes. There it is. So I was in the middle of doing something with this when you guys walked in. So I'm trying to find the edge of this. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to come down here into this thing and I'm going to do another text box insert. Way over here to text box, and then way down here to draw a text box. I'm going to draw a text box in here, and I'm going to paste
You
this.
didn't have to do okay.
Pardon me?
You didn't have to use a photo.
He's a point of departure for us. You don't have to do Martin Luther King if you don't want to, but I want it to be something about social justice. So
Okay.
could be Martin Luther King, could be civil rights movement, could be some aspect of social justice. I got a whole bunch of folks in the classroom and they're coming at the idea of social justice from all different directions. Some are very conservative, some are very liberal. Some of us haven't had a whole lot of experience with some of this. So I'm trying to figure out a way to open this up to as many people as possible and still have this kind of work around the idea of the Martin Luther King holiday. So it's a point of departure. So I've got this text box like this. And so what I'm going to do is stretch this out so it all fits in there. And then I'm going to click on that and do the shape outline and get rid of the outline, no outline, and shape fill. And I've got it, I've got it, no fill. And then I can slide this. Oh, and did I do the wrap text to make it tight? Because I want it tight so that I can put this anywhere I want and it won't snap back like a rubber band. And I've just got this. So I'm looking at the descender of the Y here and the ascender of the upper part of the L here and trying to get those to kind of like not run into each other. But
That
I'm
actually looks good.
I'm a smasher. I like to smash this stuff together. So, you know, that becomes more integrated. It becomes the visual linkages become stronger the closer that you can get to things and the more you can line things up. And I you know, play with that for a while. If you take into account this quotation mark up here and the exclamation mark down here, I kind of sort of have them justified left and right, not really, but just about almost. And I've got some of these things interacting enough so that they become really nice. I like how the dot on the I is like underneath the V of the W. You know, you start looking for those tiny little things of how these things kind of work together. And maybe I gotta just move this a little bit. What happens if I go that way? What happens? I can't have it up this high, and I can't go any further to the right. And I'd like to. What happens if I put a
I like the Y and the L.
okay? And it's interesting. So now we're just going to try to go back to see the whole thing, and I got to move you guys out of the way. So I got to move you guys someplace else so that I can make this smaller. This is a vertical format composition, so I have to make it small enough so that it fits someplace so that I can see the whole thing. And you guys can now stand over there. Okay, so the photograph has had an edge filter applied to it. So we've got a fuzzy edge on the outside edge of the photograph and possibly a drop shadow. I don't know, I can't see it for right now. And I don't know how you guys feel about that. If you like that, if you think that enhances the photograph, I don't really have a dog in this fight, but I noticed that the edge is fuzzy. And that kind of makes the edges of the letters. And what font did she use? She used Bodini MT, which is a bold version of Bodini font, which is a serif font. And I think that Bodini is almost a novelty font. So be careful, because something like Bodini, let's go down, let's look at Bodini down here. Bodini is in the O's, B-O, Bodini. Look at that. Bodini MT Black is just it's a really strong font. It goes beyond just being a normal text to being something that's really that. So we got Bodini MT Condensed. Maybe that's the one she used here. So anyway, it's kind of a fancy font. It's okay when you're just doing it for one phrase or one sentence. So it's okay. This is her own photograph of herself walking on the beach here in Coos Bay. So I changed it a little bit. I made this bigger, and maybe it's too big, but I tried to take that really long first line, don't judge a book by its cover, and I shortened it down. I did a little editing to don't judge. And then I shortened this other line down here too, because don't judge a book by its cover is one thing, and you know, don't judge somebody until you've walked a mile in their shoes is another thing. So we've got two phrases and a picture, and we're trying to blend all of this stuff together. So the editor in you has to come out to try to edit this thing down to something that's very pithy and just has the essential qualities of what you're trying to communicate. And you please feel free to edit even Martin Luther King's words if they need editing. If he's too loud and too long and verby, you might have to, you know, edit things so that it fits better. As long as you get the essential quality of what is trying to be said, you know, that's fine. That's good. So anyway, that's the game we're playing with this. And so Loie went ahead and did one over the weekend, and she emailed it to me, and I messed up and I didn't have it open on my desktop when I started the recording for this thing. So I don't have it to share with you guys. I'd like to invite more of you to be able to bring in your first draft of something. If you want help on it, or if you want some input or something, I'd be happy to do this kind of dog and pony show on Wednesday or Friday as we're developing these ideas and trying to refine them and bring them to a final draft of the idea. This is where I need to take a breath and ask you guys both online and in person if there are any questions here. So does anybody have a question for me about this process so far? I'm getting a lot of head shakes, like, nope, it's clear as day to me. How about you online folks? You guys got any questions for me? I got your microphones are off and I've been talking the whole time. So
I don't have any questions.
hi, Jasmine.
Hi, I'm good on questions. I think
You're
we're
good.
good.
Okay. So hopefully today's thing talking about fonts cleared up a whole bunch of questions that you might have had about fonts. We still have to actually work with fonts to see if we can, and I don't want to use the word appropriate, but it is kind of, you know, if you can choose the appropriate font for the kind of message that you're trying to convey. And I'm happy to give some feedback and advice. You do not have to take my feedback or advice. I also respect people who stick to their guns, who like their choices of image or fonts because it's your thing and it's your choice, and that's fine. We can have the discussion and then you are the artist, so you get to make the final decision, and that's fine. I see that we're just a couple minutes to the end of the first hour of class. I don't have a second hour of class for you guys today. That would be a lab where you're supposed to do your work. So we're still trying to do this stuff at home where you're creating an image or finding an image on the internet and editing it, cropping it, whatever, and then trying to come up with some kind of a text to go along with the image. And it can be anything from quotes from Martin Luther King to quotes from, you know, your favorite rapper or, you know, other artist or celebrity or whatever person. As long as it's poignant, you know, as long as it's profound in some way, and hopefully when you mix and match up images with text, you will make something that's powerful and profound, just not too powerful. You know, watch how scary some of this stuff can get when you start to match this stuff up. But I'm going to let you guys go for now. And anybody who wants to stay after and ask me a question individually, you're sure welcome to stay after. But that'll do it for us today. And we'll see you guys again on Wednesday. And we'll play with this stuff some more. So thank you and goodbye for now online. And the class is leaving. So long.
Did you text me in?
Did I text who?
Check me in attendance.
Oh, I check you in on attendance. Yes. Lily, there we go. All right.
Thank you.
You're here. Welcome to you. All right.
Sorry,
That's okay. It's all right. All right.
are you gonna open it?